Hey everyone, we are jumping right into the big one today, artificial intelligence. Is it all hype? Is it all hope? Or are we staring down the barrel of a massive bubble that's about to burst? Well, let's get into it. So here's the question that's really on everyone's mind. Is AI the next great technological revolution, or is it just the next big bust? On one hand, you hear that it's this world-changing technology, but on the other, well, the warning signs of a massive speculative bubble are pretty much everywhere you look. So which is it? To get a sense of the scale we're talking about, just look at this number, $5 trillion. That was the valuation of a single company, NVIDIA, not too long ago. They're the ones making the chips that power all this AI. And for a moment there, they were worth more than the entire economy of every country on Earth, except for the US and China. One company. It's just staggering. But, while Wall Street is popping champagne over these numbers, the feeling for everyone else is, well, it's a little different. We're seeing massive layoffs tearing through the tech industry. You can't open a news site without seeing a headline comparing today to 2008. And that's the huge contradiction, right? If AI is creating so much wealth, why are so many people losing their jobs? All right, so here's our game plan. We're going to start with all this hype and contrast it with the reality of the layoffs. Then, we'll break down the anatomy of a financial bubble and follow the money in the AI world. After that, we'll look at what could happen when the music stops, the ripple effects for all of us, and finally, how you might be able to survive the shakeout. So, let's kick things off with this really strange paradox at the heart of the whole AI boom. You've got CEOs on TV every day telling us how AI is just revolutionizing their companies. But if you actually talk to the people who are supposed to be using this stuff, you get a very, very different story. And listen, this isn't just a hunch. The data is pretty shocking. The Financial Times talked to these companies where executives were raving about AI, but when they actually checked in with the employees, it turned out no one was even using it. One study found that generative AI failed in 95% of implementation cases. Another one, focused on programmers, found that using AI actually made their coding tasks take 19% longer. The reality is, for a lot of people, AI is making more work, not less. So, if AI isn't really replacing people yet, why on earth are there so many layoffs? Well, the simple answer is that AI has become the perfect excuse. Management has always wanted to cut costs by reducing headcount. Now, they can just blame it on some inevitable technological wave. It's a free pass to fire people, pile way more work onto the employees who are left, and justify to their shareholders the billions they've already sunk into this tech. This feeling that something just doesn't quite add up, it's not new. To really get what's happening with AI, we kind of have to look back at the history of financial bubbles, and you'll see the patterns are, well, they're surprisingly consistent. So, what is a financial bubble really? At its core, it's just when the price of something, a stock, a house, even a flower, gets completely disconnected from its real fundamental value. The price isn't being driven by how useful it is or how much profit it makes. It's driven by pure hype and the belief that you can sell it to some other person for even more money tomorrow. And man, history is just littered with these things. Back in the 1630s, people were paying the price of a house for a single tulip bulb. You had the railway mania in the 1840s, the auto boom in the 1920s, and of course, the dot-com bubble in the 2000s. And here's the key lesson. Even if the technology is genuinely world-changing, like railways or the internet, it is not immune to a speculative frenzy. And this madness, it can get anyone, even the smartest people in history. Sir Isaac Newton, the guy who discovered gravity, got sucked into the South Sea bubble in the 1720s. He invested, he made a nice profit, and he got out. But then he stood on the sidelines and watched his friends get even richer, and the FOMO, the fear of missing out, it got to him. He jumped back in with everything he had right at the peak and lost it all. This whole situation is a perfect example of the emperor's new clothes. You know the story, right? Everyone pretends to see the emperor's beautiful new suit because they're afraid of looking stupid. In a financial bubble, it's the same thing. All the investors, the analysts, the CEOs, they all see the insane evaluations and the questionable profits, but nobody wants to be the one to stop clapping and say, hey, I think the emperor might be naked. Okay, so just how naked is this emperor? Let's look at a metric called the Buffett indicator. It basically compares the total value of the stock market to the country's economic output. Now look at this. At the very peak of the dot-com bubble, the indicator hit 136%. Right before the 2008 crash, it was at 107%. And today, it's sitting at a jaw-dropping 226%. By this measure, we are in a bubble that is way, way bigger than the one that wiped out the internet in the year 2000. Okay, so how is this whole thing staying afloat? Well, in the AI industry, there's this really weird and complicated flow of money that just seems to go around in circles, propping everybody up. It's like a big money go-round. So let me break down a simplified version of this round tripping for you. It goes something like this. Oracle buys billions of dollars in chips from NVIDIA to build out its data centers, okay? Then OpenAI signs a massive deal to use those exact same data centers. But, and here's the twist, a huge chunk of the cash OpenAI is using for that deal came from an earlier investment from, you guessed it, NVIDIA. So NVIDIA's money goes to Oracle, which gets its money from OpenAI, which got its money from NVIDIA. On paper, everybody books huge revenues. In reality, they're just passing the same check around. Now, this circular cash flow between the giants is one thing, but the real danger might be hiding where we can't see it. You see, away from the public balance sheets of companies like Microsoft, there are these smaller, private companies taking on truly massive and often hidden amounts of debt to build all the infrastructure for this boom. Let's look at a perfect example, a company called CoreWeave. They started out mining crypto, then pivoted to renting out their GPUs for AI. They recently took out the largest private loan in history, $7.5 billion. And what did they use as collateral? Their existing stash of NVIDIA GPUs. And what do they use the money for? To buy even more NVIDIA GPUs. Now, that's risky enough, but here is the real kicker. CoreWeave's main customer is Microsoft. So all of this super risky debt that's propping up the AI boom, it appears nowhere on Microsoft's books. It's completely hidden risk. So here's the billion-dollar question, or trillion, I guess. What happens when this all comes crashing down? When the music finally stops and investors realize the game is up, what does that actually look like? Well, broadly speaking, there are two ways this could go. So in scenario one, the crash is kind of contained within the tech world. Big companies like Microsoft and Meta, they use their own cash to bet on AI. If it all goes bust, yeah, they'll take a massive loss, but they're big enough to survive it. But in scenario two, the more dangerous one, that hidden debt from companies like CoreWeave starts to unravel. All the private lenders and hedge funds that finance this boom are suddenly in deep trouble. The crash is no longer just about tech stocks. It becomes a contagion that spreads to the entire financial system, hitting pensions, mutual funds, and maybe even the banks. And this number right here, this just shows you the insane pressure these companies are in. $2 trillion. That's how much new revenue AI companies need to generate in less than 5 years just to make sense of their current valuations. And remember, a company like OpenAI is reportedly still losing money every single time you use ChatGPT. To turn that around and generate trillions in profit, that is a really, really tall order. Look, a potential crash isn't just a problem for some investors in Silicon Valley. This thing has serious implications for governments, for taxpayers, and for your own personal finances. And it's not just about individual investors either. Your retirement fund is probably exposed. Tech companies now make up such a huge slice of the major stock indexes, like the S&P 500. That means pension funds and retirement accounts all over the world, which are heavily invested in the US market, are now tied to the fate of this one bubble. When a handful of tech companies dominate everything, we're all at risk. And what happens when private companies make these massive, risky bets that could tank the whole economy? Well, they often go running to the government for help. And get this, in private interviews, executives from companies like OpenAI have already started dropping hints about needing government guarantees and backstops, which, let's be honest, is just a fancy way of saying bailouts, to get the funding they need. They're already laying the groundwork to have taxpayers foot the bill if their big gamble fails. In fact, you could make the case that the bailouts have already started, just quietly. A recent U.S. budget bill included a little policy change called bonus depreciation. Now, normally, if a company builds a huge data center, they get tax breaks that are spread out over decades. This new policy lets them claim the entire tax break on day one. It's a massive, instant cash injection for the AI industry, basically keeping the bubble inflated at an estimated cost to taxpayers of $378 billion. So, with all this hype, all this risk, all this uncertainty, the real question is, what can you do? How do you prepare yourself for whatever's coming next? Because whether the bubble pops or not, AI is changing how we work. And the conversation is starting to shift from this fear of being replaced to the challenge of how to adapt. Okay, this is a really crucial idea. AI isn't really eliminating jobs like software development. It's compressing the job. Think of it like this. AI is amazing at automating all the boring, repetitive, mechanical parts of a job. And what that does is it basically removes all the low-level chores, which makes the high-level, human parts of the job more valuable than ever. Let's make that really concrete. Things like memorizing programming languages or writing standard code over and over. That stuff is rapidly losing its value because an AI can do it in a second. But skills that are becoming incredibly valuable are things like systems design, critical thinking, and just good old-fashioned judgment. Being able to ask the AI the right questions, to understand the big picture, and most importantly, to look at what the AI spits out and fix it, that's becoming the core of the job. And that human oversight is so important because the code that AIs generate is, well, it's far from perfect. One analysis found it has 1.7 times more bugs than code written by a human. A university study found that 40% of the suggestions from GitHub Copilot had security holes in them. So the AI looks like it's doing the work, but it's often creating these hidden time bombs that only an experienced human can spot and diffuse. This quote really just sums it all up perfectly. AI is an incredibly powerful tool. It can give you blinding speed, but it cannot give you understanding. It's an amplifier. If you don't really get the fundamentals of what you're doing, the AI is just going to help you make mistakes faster and on a much bigger scale. And that's why, in the end, it's going to widen the gap between people who are good at their jobs and people who are truly great. So let's end with this. The whole debate about if AI is going to take your job, it's kind of becoming obsolete. It's here. It's already changing things. So the real question you should be asking isn't if your job will change. It's how you are going to adapt. Which skills are you going to build, and how are you going to use these new tools to make yourself more valuable, not less?